Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and this episode is produced for Forbes, where I'm a contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And today we're excited to have with us the founder and CEO of BuildOn, Jim Ziolkowski, and the Chief Operating Officer as well, Mark Friedman. Jim and Mark, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Devin. We're very excited.
Yep, we're looking forward to it, Devin. Thanks.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you. I apologize for the technology limitations today that aren't allowing us to see you, but we're so glad that you would take the time to join us in any case. And clearly the information you'll present is going to be largely via your message, and so although we'll miss seeing you, we're glad that you'd take the time to be with us anyway. So give us a quick lowdown, if you would, Jim, on what BuildOn is and does.
Well, we're addressing the education crisis at BuildOn. We're working to break the cycle of poverty, illiteracy, and low expectations through service and education. And we run intensive service learning programs in some of the most challenged urban high schools in the United States. Students literally transform their communities through service, working with elders and homeless people and younger children. And we take these same kids overseas to build schools in some of the economically poorest countries on the planet. So at this point, we're running our programs in Detroit and Chicago and the South Bronx, East New York, and Philly, Boston, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, San Francisco, Oakland. And our students have contributed over 1.4 million hours of service to turn around their communities. And we have now built nearly 700 schools in some of the poorest countries in the world, including 4 in Africa, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Nepal.
Wow, it's just amazing scale. Just amazing scale. That's really impressive. The number of people you're working with and the number of schools you've built. My heavens, the legacy you're creating. I'm just really impressed.
Thank
now,
you.
You have recently created a partnership with GE. Well, I say recently. Maybe it hasn't been that recent. You've got a partnership with GE. Mark, maybe you could describe that partnership for us.
Sure, Devin. It actually goes back to the very founding of BuildOn. Jim was an FMP. It's their financial management program at GE where he went after graduating college, and that's where the relationship started with GE. I think he'll probably tell you a little bit more about that, but it's blossomed from there into an amazing story of how a corporation and a nonprofit can come together to break the cycle of poverty, illiteracy, and low expectations.
Oh, that's just great. So, how did you originally build on that initial relationship? How have you leveraged it? I guess what I'm trying to get at is how we learn to do this, right? How do the people who are listening, and many of whom are nonprofit leaders, some of whom are corporate CSR types, trying to figure out how to make a partnership work. How does it work? How have you built that so successfully?
So it's happened over time, and it started literally 23 years ago. But at this point, we have national board representation. The CFO of GE, Jeff Bornstein, is on our national board. The treasurer is deeply engaged in BuildOn as well at GE. But it's not just there. We have the FMPs, Financial Management Program folks, which are in the fast track, in the executive track at BuildOn, that compete for slots to go out and build schools in BuildOn countries and work with our communities. These same FMPs are working side by side with our students in some of the toughest urban environments in the United States, serving. And so Jeff Bornstein, the CFO of GE, will tell you that the partnership with BuildOn is a competitive advantage. To get the best talent with millennials, folks want to work for a company that has some sense of purpose. And the partnership between BuildOn and GE has helped to provide that. And for us, it's been incredible on every level, going back to the very beginning.
And it's in addition to that, Devin, it's not just the FMPs that are building schools. We have GE has an internal audit staff, and they're going out to build their second school. They're going to Nepal in late January. And we have other business units from within GE, but we are also cultivating, and they're building schools as well as doing service work locally.
Oh, that's great. It's really fascinating. So, what does GE get out of this, do you think?
Well, I think there's a number of ways that GE, I think, really gains from the partnership. First of all, when folks go over to build schools with BuildOn, they consider it to be really transformative leadership development and team building. A team of GE executives, including the CFO of GE Capital, will go and travel to a village, live in a community, work side by side with the villagers to help build a school. And it's radical in a lot of ways. We're working in 110-degree heat near the equator, whether it's in Africa or Nicaragua or Haiti or even Nepal. And they collaborate with the community members and work across so many different cultural boundaries in an effort to build a school and to literally break the cycle of poverty through education. And this school that they build will last for generations, 100 years at least, impacting children, and their children and their great-grandchildren. And so I think the folks at GE get a lot from it. They grow tremendously from the experience. They become acutely aware of the issues surrounding extreme poverty in the world, and they are able to take action and come away with something quantifiable that they contributed to. And most importantly, I think they grow from the experience and learn from the community members and gain a really strong sense of purpose around the partnership and around their work at GE, because GE is a major donor. And so we work very closely on all these different levels.
Well, you talk about GE as a major donor. I want to drill down a little bit on what you're getting out of this partnership. Clearly this is working for them, but what are they doing for you? And again, the more explicit you can be, the more helpful you'll be to our audience.
Go on.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we look at GE as an investor. They're investing in our work and in our programs. We certainly want to give them a really good and powerful return on that investment. So one of the things that we get out of it is board members. As Jim mentioned, Jeff Bornstein, the CFO of GE, is on our national board, as is Kathy Cassidy. We have several regional boards that are focused on fundraising, and a lot of senior GE executives sit on those various boards, whether it's on the East Coast or the Midwest or the West Coast. Of course, they support financially our programs, and then through our special events, the growth of the organization in that way as well.
And they're providing some capital, right? Some cash?
Absolutely, a tremendous amount of investment and contribution to BuildOn fiscally. So it's big, and as Mark said, there's a substantial financial contribution, but also with this level of GE leadership on our national board, they elevate the rest of our board, and they help really, in a lot of ways, for us to elevate as an organization. They set the bar very high, and the expectations are clear. And so we work very hard and are completely accountable to the strategic plan that we present to our boards, to the budgets, to the metrics and the key performance indicators, to delivering. And a lot of that ethos comes from this partnership with GE. And it's not just GE. We're working closely with Ogilvy, Pitney Bowes, PwC, Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank. We work very closely with our partners. They get deeply invested. They help us to elevate our game, so to speak. They contribute to us, and we give them a really strong way to contribute, to connect with communities that are living in poverty and to make a substantial difference.
Now, you recently did a very successful gala, raised over $3.5 million, and you've credited GE for some of the success of that event. Tell us a little bit about the event, where the money came from, and how GE played a role in that.
Sure. So it was our gala. We held it on November 20th, and we, as you said, we raised $3.5 million, which is up from $2 million the previous year. And we attribute the increase to what we're calling the GE Challenge. And we honored Jeff Bornstein, the CFO. He issued a challenge where we as a group and many of his top lieutenants were to go out and try and find corporations that wanted to directly invest in our service learning program in the Bronx and in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and in Detroit. We were successful with that in getting 10 corporations to contribute $100,000 each towards that, which what we're going to do now with those investors is we are going to directly connect them with one specific service learning program. Over the next year, there will be opportunities for them to engage with the students, working side by side with them at homeless shelters and at soup kitchens, both in the Bronx and then at the corporation.
Well, it really has been a hugely successful partnership. It's very inspiring. I want to ask both of you, Mark, maybe you could go first, and then Jim, we can hear from you. But I'd like you to just comment on why you do this. And I'm looking for the more personal reasons. You know, this is great work. I commend you for doing, but I want to know why you do this. There are so many other things you could be doing in the world. Mark?
Well, I think it starts back I think back to my mother, who was the development director at the public television station in Detroit, where I grew up in that area, and she instilled with me early on the importance of volunteering and philanthropy, and not just giving money, which is important, but doing work. And when I met Jim through his cousin, who were roommates in college, I was very intrigued by what Jim's idea was about starting BuildOn. And I knew, although I was in a corporate job then and on a pretty good track there as the COO, that wasn't where my passion was. And trying to work two jobs at once became very unmanageable at a certain point, and I followed my heart, and I have no regrets except maybe not starting it sooner.
That's great. Jim?
Well, so after I graduated from college, I worked a couple of jobs, saved as much money as I could, and then backpacked and hitchhiked around the world for about a year. And I spent most of my time in developing countries. And I was initially overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed by the injustice of extreme poverty, especially in India, and then in Nepal, which suffers from even more extreme poverty. And I was in Nepal, and sort of trying to sort this out, and trekking up into the mountains, and I was like 6 or 7 days up when I passed through a village that was celebrating the opening of a school. And it was the first time they had ever built a school, and it was a 2-day celebration, and they never went home. I mean, this was a party, and it's the monsoon, so it's raining tremendously, and people are having this celebration. So now I'm not just seeing the impacts and the injustice of extreme poverty, I'm seeing the hope and the courage and determination around education. And when I finished this journey and came back to the States, I saw poverty in our own country much differently, especially in American inner cities. And I saw a lot of seemingly intractable problems, whether it's gang violence or drugs or just poverty itself, but also saw that hope and determination that our youth, high school students, had, that same courage that they had in Nepal. So I wanted to act on it, Devin, but I completely chickened out and took a job with GE and worked as at GE for about 1.5 years until I kind of got the courage up to leave GE and take the plunge and start up BuildOn.
Well, that's great. I really appreciate you sharing that story, because that's really the heart and soul of, I think, what you've created. It grows out of that personal experience and your drive to make this happen. So I really thank you for sharing that. BuildOn, people can learn more about BuildOn at buildon.org, right?
Yeah, buildon.org is our website. You can follow us on social. I'm at Jim Z, BuildOn. And Mark, what's your handle over there on Twitter?
Mark Freeds.
At Mark Freeds.
You just go to the website, you'll find it easy.
Okay. Listen, gentlemen, I really appreciate all of your time today. I commend you for your great work, and wish you every success in growing the impact that you've had.
Thanks so much, Devin. We're very grateful to have had this opportunity with you, and we look forward to talking more.
All righty.
Thanks,
Let's
Devin.
do some good.
All right.